It's almost that time of the year, the time where pumpkins get carved, kids go trick or treating, and Michael Myers kills people. And because of that, we're gonna be doing a lot more content focusing around the Halloween franchise that we all know and some love. The old choose your own scare adventure that we all know it's come to be, just like the Goosebump books we all used to read as kids. So yeah, let's get into it. We're gonna today do a tier ranking of the Halloween timelines. And here we go. Now, a lot of people have opinions on, what are the Halloween timelines? What constitutes a timeline? What doesn't? It's pretty subjective. I mean, from my own perspective, if a movie comes after another movie and seems to exist in the same continuity, picks up where the last one left off, then pretty much counting that as a timeline. But it's subjective. I mean, there's no wrong way to watch the Halloween movie, so you can do as you can. You can leave certain sequels off if you like and enjoy them however you might. I've created, from my own perspective, 5 Halloween timelines, and I'm going to rank them from my least favorite to my favorite. Number 5, the bottom choice, not much of a not a very hard decision for me. This is going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween movies right here at number 5. Now, these movies, I mean, this timeline certainly has its fans. People are pretty, I would say a lot of people are fans of the very first Rob Zombie movie. And then a lot of people aren't fans of part two. Or you also see, especially in recent years, a new resurgence of appreciation for Halloween 2. It's a weird movie. It's a lot of weird choices there, but we took some chances there, and it's definitely unique and different from the other Halloween movies. So got to give Rob Zombie credit there. How do I feel about these movies? Well, I think that for me, I appreciate what Rob Zombie was trying to do, but for me, Michael Myers doesn't need to be explained with, a typical serial killer background where we see the traumatic upbringing and the bullying and everything like that. I think Michael's better left as a mystery. So for me, that didn't really do much for me, that first 10, 15 minutes of the initial Rob Zombie Halloween. And then also, to be honest, the damn language, man, there's so much language in that first 10 minutes, and that's a weird thing to complain about in a slasher film, but damn, just the way those people talk was just, I don't know, something it set the wrong mood for me for a Halloween movie. It didn't put me, like, in a Halloween franchise mood that I usually am when I watch these movies. So, I did like the stuff, when Michael was a kid with Loomis. I think that for me, I would have preferred the entire movie just to be focused on Michael in the, you know, at the hospital getting, tracked by or studied by Loomis and their kind of relationship developing. I like that a lot. And then the last half of the movie kind of starts to mimic the more like a traditional remake of the first movie, but I don't know. I find myself not really being curious to go back and watch it again. Not finding much rewatchability with these movies. Halloween 2 definitely has some weird ass things in it. But again, I appreciate that Rob Zombie took some chances with this, and I understand why people come around that, at least to view it as, artistically speaking, a unique approach to the Halloween franchise. But similar to part one, I don't find much rewatchability with it. I didn't really connect with the characters. Um, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like Michael Myers to me. It feels like a whole different thing. If it wasn't, if these two movies weren't remakes and just was their own separate slashers, I think a lot of people probably would feel better about them. But I don't know. I just for me, these movies just did not do it for me. All right, coming in next, number 4. What's it gonna be? What's going to be the next best Halloween timeline? Well, to be completely transparent, I was not the biggest fan of what I'm going to call the Halloween 2018 timeline. The Blumhouse timeline, you could call it also. So, you know, obviously this timeline gets a lot of points for both Halloween and Halloween 2018. My problems with this timeline are mostly centered around Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. Now, Halloween Kills could have been a great movie. There's some great kills in there, but some big time problems with it, including especially all that evil dies tonight bullshit. I just was not a fan of everything to do with the hospital, the mob, all that stuff was just felt like an entirely different movie, different franchise, slowed the movie down. I didn't like that Laurie pretty much had no real role in Halloween Kills, and then a few scenes in the hospital. This new version of Tommy Doyle was, for me, one of the most annoying characters I've ever seen. I was not sad to see him get demolished at the end. The character did nothing for me. I thought there was a pretty bad reuse of the legacy characters, Miriam, Tommy Doyle. It's just, Alani, it didn't do anything for me. And then Halloween Ends, which a lot of people think that Halloween Ends will sort of similar to Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie, kind of take on a greater appreciation artistically as time goes on. And maybe so. I think, again, it suffers from having the Halloween name because as a separate movie, there's some interesting things in Halloween Ends, I feel. There's an interesting thing going on there, a dynamic that for a different franchise or a different movie or even just a different Halloween sequel. The fact is, this being the end of the trilogy, it felt like the wrong story to end this trilogy. You suddenly everything set up in Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, kind of goes by the wayside to focus on a new character named Corey, and we get probably the most meekest and weakest version of Michael Myers we've ever seen in the franchise. Gets at a certain point, getting beat up in the sewer by Corey and getting his mask stolen as if it's his lunch money. And I mean, obviously people always make fun of Busta Rhymes kicking the crap out of Michael Myers, but I think Corey beating him up was even lower than that on the Michael Shame scale. So that series I feel like could have been higher on my list if it was just Halloween and Halloween 2018. Just give Halloween 2018 a definitive end, show Michael burning in that fire, end it there, and you'd be totally in my good graces. But ending it with Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. Halloween Kills, also should mention, also doesn't really feel like Michael. Also kind of feels more like a Jason movie. It feels like it's just him going around killing people randomly, which doesn't fit Michael's MO per se. But yeah, but I understand that a lot of people have polarized opinions about the Blumhouse trilogy, and I will go back and watch Halloween and Halloween 2018, of course, but I'm just not a fan of Kills and Ends. All right, let's see what's next. Number 3 here on the tier list. I'm going to go with Halloween 3. Now, this is one that for many years I was hesitant to really give a chance. That's definitely the case that this was the last movie I saw in the Halloween franchise from the earlier sequels. I would always watch parts 4 and 5 on AMC during October Fear Fest. So the TV versions of Halloween 2, 4, and 5 are the ones I saw most as a kid, as a child. Halloween 3 never seemed to be included in that marathon. So even they knew not to include it in the series. It was always kind of the thing left out there. So, but watching it in recent years and giving it a chance, I found it to be a very fun and refreshing Halloween story. It is really puts you in the seasonal Halloween mood because of the costumes and that silly song, and the story is pretty dark, actually, believe it or not. So Halloween 3 is a little bit slow in the middle, but I think a lot of people would like to see this whole universe elaborated on, like a sequel to Halloween 3, like get more into what's going on there. Actually, would probably be pretty interesting. But I don't think it has the fan base necessarily for them to go back and revisit it. But again, like the other sequels we talked about so far, if this was just called Season of the Witch, it probably might be considered one of those horror, maybe not a horror classic, but would be highly regarded in the horror community if it wasn't associated with the Halloween franchise. But such as things, they wanted to try out the anthology idea. People still wanted Michael, so it didn't work box office wise, and it was the last of its kind in this series. So, all right, number 2, decisions. So 3 timelines down, 2 left to go. This is going to be hot take central for a lot of people. So my number 2, I'm going to just call it the H2O storyline or timeline. So now for me, a lot of people actually, this is the one I would say that people kind of do their own thing with. So some people do 1, 2, and H2O, which is a fantastic timeline. But from my perspective, because Resurrection does follow up H2O, I feel like I have to include that in the timeline. And that's probably the only thing that makes this number 2 and not number 1. If you do want to strictly say, hey, let's just do 1, 2, and H2O, then hey, that's fine. That could be your favorite timeline, and that's solid. But for this purpose, I feel like I always have to include Resurrection. I mean, if you read the behind the scenes on the movie, when they filmed the ending of H2O, they knew that wasn't Michael getting his head cut off. They'd already planned that out. Uh, Laurie Strode, basically, Jamie Lee Curtis, thought that she was able to kill Michael Myers with H2O, but she was told, I guess, during filming that, or right before filming that, hey, like, we can't actually kill Michael. We can't actually kill Michael Myers. He has to be alive at the end. So this was the compromise where the audience and Laurie Strode thinks that she cut off Michael's head, but the whole time it was the paramedic. So Resurrection, to me, it picks up, after Halloween H2O. I have to include there, and Resurrection, of course, would go on to kill Laurie Strode in the first 10 minutes. She dies in one of the dumbest ways. She just had to know that it wasn't Michael Myers on the mask, and it was just kind of stupid. And then the whole storyline with the Dangertainment, ahead of its time, but still just didn't click. Really not likable characters. Um, had potential to restore Michael back to the purity you could call it, of him not having the family sister motivation. But just didn't work. But obviously, 1, 2, and H2O are pretty damn good movies. H2O is solid. There's a lot of H2O backlash sometimes because the mask looks ridiculous. You can see Michael's eyes, and um, they're using different masks all throughout the movie. So I understand that, and also people seem to associate it with like the Scream era, feeling like it felt like a teen Scream movie, but I feel like that's said a lot without a lot of evidence being given of that, of it feeling like a Scream movie. To me, it feels like, a Halloween movie. So, but yeah, still solid way to go. 1, 2, H2O, Resurrection. You can kind of see where Resurrection killed the franchise for a while. So, now the hot take, of course, is that means my number one is the Thorn timeline. Now, the Thorn timeline, I, I wonder if it is just nostalgic bias coming in here, because this ranking might all be based on which movies you saw first, how old you are. So for me, the Thorn movies were the ones that seemed to always play on AMC. So it was as simple as coming home from school on a Tuesday, it might be Halloween or the week of Halloween, part 4 and 5 back to back, just felt like the Halloween movies. As an adult watching them, of course, you realize that Halloween 5 is almost certainly a piece of shit movie, and that Tina is, in my opinion, the worst character in the franchise. I know some people defend Tina. I can't get on board. I was sort of just annoyed there. Um, but Halloween 4 is fantastic. And Halloween 6, I would say I'm coming around. I'm going to make a separate video about, in my opinion, The Curse of Michael Myers actually being an underrated entry in the series. I've totally come around on it. Yes, it's batshit crazy. The story does not make sense, but you have a great Michael Myers in Halloween 6. You have a pissed off Michael Myers. You have great death scenes, and you have a real awesome autumn vibe, a Halloween vibe. Like the vibe in that movie, like with a better script, that atmosphere, that vibe could have put as one of the better entries in the series. So, um, the big thing for this team, for me too, also is that you might have different groups of like who's the main, different thoughts of like who's the main protagonist in the Halloween series. And for me, there's no question the main hero of the series is not Laurie Strode. For me, it's Dr. Loomis. I'm a Loomis guy, so the Thorn storyline gives me pretty much the cat and mouse chase of Loomis and Michael back and forth. Loomis slowly losing his mind over the course of the sequels, getting more and more crazy. Uh, but that's another thing. So basically, the other, even though 1, 2, and H2O and Resurrection, that's my number two. The missing Loomis in H2O and the missing Loomis in Resurrection. For me, Loomis in a Halloween movie almost completes the Halloween feel for me. That might have been why I didn't love the new trilogy as much. Also, is the lack of Loomis. Sartain was a terrible replacement, twist, whatever you want to call that. So yeah, I mean, I guess this looking at my list, this does seem to be a hot take, because I think that a lot of people probably have the Blumhouse movies and the H2O timeline probably above Thorn, but I'm a Thorn guy. Halloween 4, amazing. Um, One timeline I would say I don't consider a timeline per se, but some people do. It'll be an honorable mention. I would say that the most purest thing you could do, and there's nothing wrong with this either, is just watch Halloween and watch Halloween 2. So Halloween 2 back to back that take place on the same night. And the end of Halloween 2 is a definitive ending for both Michael and Dr. Loomis. That itself, if you consider that a timeline, that's perfectly fine. I mean, H2O obviously made it so Michael somehow escaped, but at the end of part two, we are pretty clearly shown Michael burning to a crisp. So Halloween 1 and 2 is also a way you can go with that. But yeah, so let me know what you guys think about what is your favorite Halloween timeline. Because it's Halloween month and we're doing a lot of content for the Halloween franchise. And yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll feel like I want to watch Season of the Witch right now, actually. So